also like to add to this, any citizens wishing to be heard, and by the way, there is a sign-in sheet, but it is not required. If you want to be on record for having been here, there it is. So, anyway, any citizens wishing to be heard? We hear anybody? Moving on then, item number 2, consideration and possible action of approval of the draft for 2014-15, that's the fiscal year, financial statement, SANI Form 2631R97, after discussion with the county budget consultant, review, adjust, and approve fiscal year 15-16 county officers' estimate needs as necessary with each county officer and the county budget consultant. Review and approve the completed 15-16 county estimate of needs and financial statement for fiscal year 14-15 for submission to the county excise board for review. This action is intended to embody the county commissioner's statutory budget review and approval requirement. In attendance should be Jerry Putnam, county budget consultant, and all county officers. So, first off, I think that would be Mr. Putnam, and if you could present our draft for financial statement, I appreciate it.
Good morning, be happy to do that. I'm Jerry, and Paula, my sidekick, is with me this morning. I love to be the bearer of good news, and I don't get very many opportunities to do that, and today I think I get to. I've got a few of these sheets to hand out if you want to kind of split those up and share where we need to, but there are really only 2 components to your budget: what you carry over from the prior year and then the new revenue that we're going to receive in 15-16. So this sheet shows we broke that revenue into two different types of revenue: miscellaneous revenue and ad valorem revenue, because it's a little different procedure to figure out what the ad valorem revenue is going to be. We have to use some formulas there. But when we look at the components that make up your budget and compare those to last year, they're increased across the board. The carryover is up $223,000. Our revenue estimates are up 36, almost 37,000, and the ad valorem estimates are up $92,573.59. So everything's going the right direction there. And the other side of that budget, of course, is the expenditure side, and we have to look at what the requests are that come in from all the departments. We have 18 departments that have submitted requests, and the good news there is on another sheet that I don't know if that's been distributed yet or not. So, okay. The good news there, when we add up all the requests from the 18 individual departments, we have $183,732.19 above that amount of the requests. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we just divide that by 18 and everybody gets $10,000 in each department? But it's not that simple. So I think today our responsibility is going to be to go through each of these departments and look, and I think we've got all the information spread out here pretty well. We can look at what was approved for each one last year, what was spent, what was lapsed, what they're requesting this time around, and see if we need to do a lot further discussion on any of these and decide where we need to make our adjustments. The good thing is that we don't have to get in here and start hacking away at each department and take something from each one that we've got extra money this year. So I'll pause right there and let you help me decide the next step to take here. But usually, we go through have each representative from each department speak for their budget and talk about changes, why they need more, why they're able to get by with less, and so forth. And, so that's one option there if you want to try that this morning.
The only thing I would have is on the health insurance. Our health insurance went up, I think, $26 a month per person, and I think we probably ought to increase our health insurance lines.
Okay. Before we get to talking about specifics, I'd like to kind of go over the financial statement kind of look at some of the numbers that compose that, make that up, and chat about the financial statement as a whole, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
All right, great.
Go for it.
Jerry, looking at our financial statement, it's made up of several different parts. Of course, you know, you have assets, liabilities, revenue, additions, that sort of stuff, adjustments that have to be made, those sorts of things. I've got about 3 questions that have that are on additions down here on Schedule 3 of Exhibit A, the cash fund balance.
Okay.
Okay. It shows that we collected $371,000 in excess, on miscellaneous, in excess of what was estimated, right? Okay, so that shows up as extra. And I can kind of understand that a little bit. I would kind of, if you could, can you tell me which departments collected more than they had estimated for the most part? Which was maybe the top 1 or 2 there?
Okay, we do have the benefit, we have that next schedule there.
Right.
Page 2A and 2B, it does break that down and shows an over-under category there, and revaluation is one that jumps out right away. We're pretty conservative on our estimates on revaluation reimbursements, because we know that you know, some of the schools gonna pay slowly, and it's the same with cities or towns that might have to pay part of the revaluation cost, so.
And that's under miscellaneous
Yes, that's one of those items that
reval.
we didn't use a full 90% estimate. You know, the law says we can use up to 90% estimate of any reoccurring types of income. That's one we're a little cautious with. And
Okay, so that ended up basically giving us extra cash at the end of when we figured up the end of the year.
Yes,
Okay,
sure
so
did.
so the assets the cash available is kind of what I'm going to for this year, right?
Okay.
So if we drop down and look at the next one, right, fiscal year 2014-15 lapsed appropriations. I assume those are appropriations we had for last year that for some reason or another were canceled, and we have put that money back into the general fund cash fund.
that's right. That's usually a pretty good sign that somebody's being a good steward of their money. They didn't use everything that was allocated to them in their budget, and they were able to lapse some money back to the general fund. And
Okay, can you kind of give me an idea of where that might have came from?
yeah, it's on some other sheets that we have in front of us here too, but quite a bit came from Sheriff's Office, 108,000. General Government lapsed 204,000. Insurance account was 182,000, the largest one. So now the county audit account, it lapsed, but that's one we have to reappropriate by statute. It says, we have to set that back up for the auditor, the state auditor. So that's the only one that's unique like that does not go back into the general fund for next year.
Right.
So,
Okay, and then we drop down to 2013-14, same thing. That's a lesser amount, 42,644. I assume that those were just cleaned up from the year
Exactly.
previous that we had to.
That's right.
That goes back in the cash as well. And then ad valorem collections, and that excess of the estimate, 243,000. Is that?
I'm sorry for the interruption. She had the wrong week. But you guys are talking about these forms here, which we didn't pass out. Can we pass these out to the audience?
Yes.
Because as the audience, we're lost.
These are pages that will be in the final budget, and we just kind of provided some of those. Although the budget's not quite complete, these are statements that will be in the final budget. And we got pretty far along on those.
Oh, okay, excuse me for that, that's fine. Okay, I was just trying to be polite.
Another one of those where we overcollected revenue was in use tax. In use tax was another one, I talked about revaluation. Use tax is another one. It's hard to estimate some of those, and we don't want to be aggressive.
Well, I guess my question on the ad valorem tax was things calm down a little bit. Tish, is this, I'm gonna ask you, is this where, your reval of the, oil industry properties, is that where this is kicked in? Is that what's reflected here?
Yes, on that reval, that's part of it, yeah.
Okay, so the estimates in excess of this was due to the change made last year in the way that we did look at that one tax for that certain industry, right?
But the money that I gave back to lapse, part of that was personnel, because I didn't get my budget until the end of the year. And so I hired someone, had let them go, hired someone else and didn't get to use the money. But I have someone I need the money.
Right, okay. And so that whole, my point to all these questions is, under Schedule 3, cash funds available, that varies from year to year based on what's available and how things turn out.
Exactly.
This year, it seems that we have had somewhat of a windfall in that area. And I'm looking at what we can expect next year, because if we don't look at what we can expect next year, we can certainly dig ourselves into a hole by growing government to the point we can't pay for it next year if we continue to do that. So, based on what we've seen here, and based off of the best guess for next year's cash fund, well, it looks like if we don't do so well on lapsed appropriations, which I don't imagine we will, I'm just guessing, maybe, what are we looking at next year? So this is, I'm looking at this as maybe a one-time gift, and we need to spend it wisely.
You know, I'm always pleased and surprised when I see this. And, you know, sometimes we approve large amounts for each department, and they're able to lapse. They find ways to cut back, and I think that was the case this last year, that we're just glad to see these amounts are lapsed. I think they had the authority to spend the full amount of those appropriations, and they didn't. I think it just shows good stewardship that they kind of held the line and kept expenses at minimum. And so that area I'm not that concerned about. Valuations, you'd be a better spokesman than me, I guess, on that, but we did see an increase this year, helped us out. Miscellaneous revenue estimates, we're pretty conservative on those. We could go up to 90%.
So, Jerry, I guess I'm maybe didn't understand what I was getting at. So, we're looking at this year, the total additions before we get to deductions, right, was $1,432,000 and change. That had to do with a significant bump in fiscal year lapsed appropriations, which probably won't happen again next year. I guess that's what I'm asking. Do we think that's probably not going to happen again next year? Or if we just continue to provide more, my point is that if we're looking at budgets, right, and we've got groups that don't need all the money they're giving it back to the general fund, and they're putting it back in the general fund through lapsed appropriations, maybe we need to adjust the general fund. I guess is kind of where I'm going with that. If I don't think we're going to continue to see $1.4 million in cash added to our accounts every year. I think what you said earlier was that this is a good thing, and it doesn't normally happen that way, right?
I wanted to go back to the $1.4 million. Tell me again where you're coming from. I just presented the
Schedule 3 cash funds balance.
Oh, yeah, that's our carryover.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, that
$1,432,000.
increased $223,000 over last year. So anytime we
Right.
take in more revenue than we expend, that number's going to increase.
Right, and the story I heard last year was kind of the same thing. We got a gift because we did something special last year, so we got extra money. And I'm kind of hearing the same. I just kind of like to see some details or understand the details about where the gift comes from. Sure thing.
Can I try to?
Absolutely.
Just to clarify a couple of things. On the ad valorem in excess, and Sherry can tell you, we get to use 90% of what we're supposed to collect, but this county is fortunate that we run at 98% collections. So we generally, historically have excess ad valorem because we do collect way over the 90% that we've
Right.
allocated. On the the carryover, the lapsed appropriations, I know that my office lapsed back quite a bit because I had some turnover, and so I had salaries that wasn't used, and I think that was the case for some. The retirement account, the insurance account, and the Social Security and Medicare account always will lapse over. So that the idea of having lapsed appropriations is there. It may fluctuate. One of the other things that's playing into this that Jerry touched on, one of the revenue streams that general government has is from road crossing permits, and because they're volatile and may go up and down, we've never used the 90%. So anything we've collected each year went straight into the pot because we hadn't used any of those figures to allocate.
Okay. Well, as far as the balance sheet, my concern is, when we talk about this form right here, right? So we talk about current year, prior year, and the difference, right? I want to make sure that we all understand that this trend, that there's a trend implicated here that is probably unreal as far as a trend. It shows that we increased, our budget availability increased $352,000. But it was due to a carryover of funds we didn't execute from last year, and things that we brought back in that we're carrying forward. If we look at what we can estimate, if we take all that carryover, drop it down to about $500,000, which I think is probably closer to operating expense, and then add that in, then we're about $900,000 off of what we are today. And if that's kind of what I'm looking at, is that going to be our target for next year when we're looking at funding offices?
Commissioner, I will tell you, 4 years ago, we carried over $8,000.
Right.
Previous budget makers and mirrors that were made, and we had a carryover of $8,000 in the auditor's office about had a meltdown. So in 4 years, we've grown to a carryover of 1.4. I think that's really kind of indicative of all of us bearing down and trying really hard to do that carryover. The auditors will tell you the higher the carryover, the happier that they are. It will fluctuate, but valuations have continued to increase, so we're going, I mean, as it stands right now, they've went up every year. I think you're going to see a fluctuation in carryover, but I don't know that it'd be as drastic as you're suggesting.
Well, I'm not suggesting that it's going to be drastic. I'm just trying to look at what a realistic budget figure would be if we didn't have this $682,000 in lapsed appropriations is kind of got me concerned a little bit. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. The ad valorem estimates difference, it does grow, and that's kind of on pace, $92,000 year to year, on a $3 million estimate. Seems to be pretty close.
I certainly see your point. You know, this is a somewhat scary thing about the way we do the budget. We appropriate everything that's available, and if we're not careful, you know, we could spend all of that down and be penniless, but we sure want to try to build in some safeguards. You know, when we set up these appropriations, have in mind that, well, maybe we're not going to go into that account unless we absolutely have to, so we can build some more fund balance into the budget as we put it together this year. And
I'm concerned on petroleum. You know, a lot of it's
Yeah.
leaving,
Yeah.
and I don't know what's going to happen there.
So we try to be conservative. You know, as Troy mentioned, we didn't estimate the road crossings. We're real careful on use tax. You know, we could be a lot more aggressive. Some counties are, and they get in trouble when they really jump out there and try to be too optimistic on collections. And this county is good at monitoring them through the year. That's the key to the whole process, to watch this, get this budget on the books, and then watch the revenue, make sure it comes in as we've estimated here or more than we've estimated. Watch these expenditures to see that they're coming in at 1/12 the first month, you know, to 1/6 by the second month, and you just allocate it through the year and watch it so that we have a way to monitor it and not just be surprised at the end of the year when we get to the fund balance. But we have a pretty good idea what it's going to be when we're coming up on it.
Thank you, Jerry.
We got 180,000 left over after everybody's estimated increase. I looked at everyone's estimate and needs, I didn't see a great big increase from last year to this year. I said we fund everybody's estimate and needs, and increase our health insurance by 50 to cover the rise in health insurance, and put the rest of it in capital outlay for a safety net for next year.
So,
If we are short next year, we'll have that capital outlay.
Okay, can we maybe talk about
Sure.
the individual requests? before we
Absolutely.
Go to, I mean, that's kind of a wrap-up thing, and I'm certainly supportive.
Well, I certainly don't want to
Right,
spend
yeah.
this extra money just because we got extra money.
No, I don't think we need to spend it just because we spend it, that's my whole point.
Exactly.
Well,
Sure, where do you want to start?
We have a history of that.
well,
Your
might
last
as well
year.
start at the top. We'll go through the county officers, how did we do this before?
District attorney's on top.
Okay.
So what do you want them to do, cut, or you want to try to cut them?
Well, I want to talk about it.
So, next would be the review, adjust, and approve 15, 16 county officers' estimate needs as necessary will be the county officer and the county budget consultant. So,
I think Commissioner Brown need to speak with each officer about their request, if I understood correctly.
That's true.
that's my understanding of his request. So,
We've got anybody from the DA's office?
I'll be right over here.
All right, sir, how about that? Okay, the only question I have about your request is the addition for civil attorney and the $6,513.15.
Right.
I've been kind of trying to figure out in the statutes where we could actually go to approve that. And actually, just my amateurish looking through the statutes, what I found actually says that we can't do that.
This has been done traditionally for the last however many years over in Payne County.
Yeah, I understand traditions. The section 215 of Title 19, Chapter 7, it talks about reimbursement for the DA's office. Basically says the state will reimburse the county, or the state pays for the salaries for the DAs and the assistant DAs. And that unless there's a county, unless the county has a population of more than $400,000, we can't, or 400,000 people, we can't even consider what you're asking.
Can you give me the statute number you're referring to?
Yes, sir. Title 19, Chapter 7, Section 215.30, salaries and expenses.
Title 19, if you have a budget for it, and we operate under Title 63, I thought.
Well,
Am I
we're Title
incorrect?
19 as well, we're just not a budget
Okay.
board.
But you can participate, expect this kind of question. We'll be
But
happy
under,
to-
so let me give you the lead
finish
into
if I
that.
can.
Sure.
If you'll give me a few minutes, I'll make some phone calls if you want to table this question.
Sure.
I want to make sure I answer your question correctly. And for some reason, it's not pulling up. Give it to me again, 19 OS what?
19, Chapter 7, Section 215.30. And you can also check 215.37C. It talks about estimates of the DA's office filing that with the county clerk and the county building.
All right. Well, if you want to,
Let's continue
put this
on.
to the
like
good
it looks
of
like.
it, I'll be happy to make
All right.
some phone calls.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next would be the sheriff. Grand total of
Howdy.
Hello? 1.46 billion.
Any questions?
Question is, around the jail account, where you're asking again for $250,000 for the jail account. Is that not the same, funding as for the jail, as the 4% sales tax that was just passed last year?
No.
No?
No, the general budget is always giving me $250,000 for the jail. 3/4% sales tax that they had was for the jail.
To operate the jail, for the jail operation, right?
Correct.
And it doesn't cover the jail operation?
No, it doesn't.
How much
We don't
does it-
have that 3/4% sales tax anymore.
Well, but you've got a 1/4% sales tax coming directly to the
Correct.
to the jail, for your jail fund,
Correct.
right? Right.
And we still supplement the budget.
Okay, how much does the 1/4% not pay on the jail operation?
We would have to go back to and look at it.
Okay, I would appreciate it if you do that.
Commissioner, there's a statute that requires the general fund to give the jail so much money per inmate. The $250,000 was established quite a few years ago because of the fluctuating number. But the general fund is required to give the jail some money for operation.
Okay, if we can see that, if I can get a copy of that statute, I'd be happy to look at that as well. Just want to make sure that we're not double funding, because it seems that in cash accounts, Sheriff, you guys are carrying over almost $4 million in your cash accounts this year?
So there's money left over from the sales tax for the jail to help operate it from the previous sales tax. And then I do bring in money from federal prisoners that I brought in to help supplement so that the county doesn't have to pay the full bill. My budget was $800,000 this year for the sheriff's side and $1 million something for the jail side. And so by funding, bringing in these other businesses, that helps me pay for the jail.
So the expense to operate the jail is $1 million and what?
I think it's $1.5 million is what we had for a budget,
105?
something like that.
And how much is collected for the 4% sales tax?
I'm not sure. We'd have to go back and look. It's different every month.
Yeah, I know it's different every month, but,
It's been averaging a little over 75,000.
Yeah.
I was gonna say around 70,000, which doesn't even cover 90% of the wages we pay back their month.
Sure.
It's not like that. It was 74,000.
so I'd kind of like to see the numbers on that, what the expense for the jail is, how much the 4% sales tax is paying, how much extra you need. Because if we indeed have to pay this out of the general fund, then I'm wondering if we can't maybe reduce the 4% sales tax for you to get back down, to get that burden off the taxpayers if we need to.
I'll do my best to get what we need for you.
I appreciate it, thank you. Next. I'm done.
And be here, County Commissioner.
Is there any question, answer sessions in there?
Absolutely, go ahead.
On the sheriff, I just wonder if there's any kind of record of how much money they take in asset forfeiture.
Got it.
Nothing.
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zero.
All right, next would be our treasurer, Terry Longnecker. Do you have questions?
No, I didn't have anything on the general fund for the trip.
All right.
Do you have something to say to the crowd, ma'am?
I said I wouldn't think so with the budget of 105,000.
Very good.
Tax, so it's-
Next on our list is the commissioners.
Got anything for us?
No.
Questions?
No.
On how that is, all
I
right.
think I've been through there. I mean, if anybody else has got questions, if the public's got questions, we're certainly here to answer those for them as well.
Questions? Moving on down to OSU. Hey, I'm sorry.
I'm Haley, so I took over for Kathy James since she retired this summer, so I'm interim CED for now.
Congratulations. Any questions?
Nope. No, I'm good.
Moving on to the county clerk. me like an austere budget for her, for that office.
This is a slight increase over last year. Okay.
It's a $43,000 increase. I've
Right.
asked for an additional
Right.
employee.
That's, yeah, it's for salaries, right? So, I mean, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Any problems?
I'm good.
I'm good too. Moving on to the county court clerk. Regina?
Hello.
Anything special from the last time? Nothing? Okay. You good?
Okay, moving on down to the county assessor. Yes?
Are you asking me something? or-
Do you,
Jan,
have you
there's
got
any,
anything you'd like to?
anything you'd like to say?
Well, I asked for 3,900 on my first one to give raises. On the reval, I've asked for, it's basically another employee, which I've already hired from last year's budget, but gave back money because they weren't there very long. I haven't had them very long.
So we're good, any more questions?
I'm not just throwing, on the revaluation budget that she has there, that's one that we bill out to the schools and cities, so we collect about 75 or 80% of that back from them, and if we adjust that one down, then that's gonna affect our revenue also, so it's not a dollar for dollar cut. If we cut some of that reval program, then we're losing revenue that we've estimated that'll be shared from the schools and cities and towns that enjoy the benefits of the revaluation program.
I might say that counties our size have 12 employees, we just now have 10. And we've modernized our department, brought it up to date, and are doing exceptional assessor work in there, appraisal work.
If I may, Commissioners, with the attention to the reval, we are required by law to notify the school superintendents that are involved with the reval of any meeting that would be discussed. And since you're to that item, I would just recommend that you might ask if there's any schools here that have anything to say.
Yes. We have any schools here?
Were they notified?
There you
Yes,
are.
they were.
Nothing to say here.
All right, thanks. So we're down to the general government.
This is where our insurance comes in? No. How is insurance benefit?
Safety awards, maintenance and operations, building maintenance.
Okay, reval property, we got that.
Mhm.
General government. Let's show. Troy, would you, for the folks that are in here that don't know what some of these numbers mean under general government, could you kind of explain what, like, maintenance and operations and general government does for?
Maintenance and operations, and actually it would stand true for anyone, but with general government, that is the account that pays all of the phone bills, the electric bills, any kind of the upkeep, monthly maintenance. It covers a lot of just the general county government operations, comes from that account. Capital outlay are basically fixed asset accounts. So if we were to purchase computers or a fixed asset type thing, it would come from capital outlay. The commissioners this year have asked to set aside funding specifically for building maintenance. The courthouse and this building obviously are very aged and are in serious need of some repairs. So they've asked to set aside that money to direct towards doing some major maintenance.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
On the maintenance operations, the phone bills, like for all the commissioners and the county assessor, all that are all compiled in
The
one place?
general government offices,
Mhm.
General government pays one phone bill for these county offices.
There's like one contract for everybody, it's like individual of the 18 groups, they don't pay any of their own phone bills or electrical
Cell
bills?
phones, yes, but the landline phones have been paid by general government.
Then we pay our own internet.
Right.
So that 449 is phone bills and electricity?
It's much larger than that, Rick. It's not just utilities and phone bills. It is, and now, of course, I'm stumped any other time I look at POs nonstop. One of the big costs there, I will throw this out, that is required by law, is that includes the juvenile detention housing. Under the statute, we are responsible for paying the housing costs for any juvenile detentions. Those costs vary from $28 a day to $44 a day, depending on the facility that they're put in. And it is run in this county approximately $40,000 to $45,000 per year to cover those costs.
And those are private facilities that are getting paid?
Most of them are actually public facilities owned by counties or such. We are contracted, there's, I think, 13 in the state that we are contracted with each one.
We don't have one in Logan County?
We do not
Gotcha.
operate one in Logan County. They have to be
Our
transferred.
closest one is Canadian County.
Gotcha.
And that's a huge part of our cost. Publications,
Mhm.
all of the required publication notices comes from this particular M&O account. You know, it's a very wide list of what the general government M&O covers.
Yeah,
But those are some very
One of
large.
the biggest single line items, it's not broken down very much in here.
Well, it's really just because they're categorized by statute, what we would call M&O and what we would call capital outlay. To line item everything with, you know, almost probably a ream of paper with every individual different little, I mean, when you're looking at pest control or a telephone bill or the lights or the gas or 13 different or 12 different juvenile facilities that we pay to,
Gotcha.
that kind of thing. I will say, just for, and it's been out there, we have, and the board's permission, met with the court system and to make some efforts to try to collect reimbursement for some of those juvenile detention housings. We haven't got any yet. It's not a guarantee. That can only be imposed on those with an ability to repay. But efforts are going to be made to at least recoup anything that we can.
Next, county audit.
Rick?
Let's set the statute. Keep up with that.
That's probably, well, will kind of help us with that one.
Excise equalization board, I believe.
You made a whole page. You're trying to get ahead of us here. I want to get
And we don't need an election. So excise equalization board, there's no change in there. So I don't see any kind of change needing that. Do you,
Dan, sir?
Dan?
Good with it?
I'm good with that.
Can we not cut that down?
I need that. What is it, $50 in or something?
No, I'm good.
You don't need that. All right. On then to the county election board.
I guess we need to fund that.
Okay. Charity.
We left charity, we left it the same as last year. We normally use up the majority of it.
Right.
Again, what exactly is that used for the charity account again?
Well, normally if someone has a family member or don't have family and they pass away, they normally come to us.
It's
Indigent
indigent.
burial.
Indigent.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Because we got a cemetery fund, which is something different than that.
That has not related.
Not really.
Right, okay, thank you.
Insurance benefits.
Only thing I know of, it went up to $27 a month per employee. If we want to cover that for the employees, then we can increase that. I know we have a carryover every year, but we fund it like every employee takes it, but not every employee does take it. So
I'm one of those that don't.
that's why we have the carryover. But whatever y'all want to do.
Okay.
Does that need to be increased by
Well,
that amount?
the insurance thing, I think, maybe not at this meeting, but one in the future, we need to sit down and go over our insurance and kind of look at what we got, and what we're paying for, and what we need, and why the increases and that sort of stuff. I think,
It's because it's crazy, they want our money.
they do.
And I think at this point, we're kind of stuck with the system we have for this next year.
Yeah,
But I do like
I'm
to
talking
see
about-
some change in that as
Right.
well.
Right.
And so I think that other entities need to be involved in that.
So this increase in insurance is for the employees, but not necessarily their family members?
We provide
We-
independent.
Right,
No dependent coverage.
all right.
Good.
Well,
Well,
on
the
the
increase was-
insurance deal, I think that we need to increase it, because ain't let, we overpay our employees, and at least we can do is cover their health insurance if we can.
Should we overpay our employees?
I said we do not
Oh,
overpay our
okay.
I think we need to do all we can to help our employees.
I got you.
I'm all about helping the employees.
Okay, so
and the
this,
people.
but it says final approved, which is a little presumptuous because we're doing that now. This 1,437,597, is that with the increase or without the increase?
Okay, first off, we're talking different accounts within that fund, or that, their sub-account.
Okay.
So the first one is FICA, which is the employer's share of Social Security and Medicare.
Right.
Then unemployment, retirement, which is the employee's match, or employer's match. Unemployment, workers' comp, and then that bottom line item. The original request was 708. I think he's suggesting taking that to
Yeah,
750.
so I guess, so this does reflect the increase that we're talking about.
No.
The 1.4 does not. We would
Right.
have to raise that, it would take it to 1,487 to put that 50,000 in there.
We haven't provided that
Oh.
for you yet, we weren't aware of that, and.
Oh,
we-
okay, well, I saw the difference between $105,000 here from one year to the next. I thought maybe that was the bump.
No, that's just a lapsed balance.
Okay.
And we typically run about that much lapse in health insurance.
So we're gonna plus this, how much, 50,000 what?
Correct, so that would change the budget request for employees' health insurance to 758,000.
It's my recommendation. I only got one vote on this thing.
Yeah. I think it'd be good to cover that.
And just maybe to clarify for the record, for those that are here and probably are wondering, the county belongs with the state for insurance, the state group. They offer medical, dental, vision, disability, and life insurance. The county has only been able to provide that benefit. This is, I think, year 12. And the package is directed, they offer several different plans, and no one back 12 years ago wanted to say you're only going to get. So the way it was structured was to create a monthly dollar allowance that allowed the employees to choose which particular coverages within that amount of money. The package has been developed using the premiums for the health choice medical, the health choice dental, VSP vision, the disability plan, and the first 2 units or the first $40,000 a life. So that's where that monthly benefit, it's $559 for this year. The premium costs have went up almost $27 starting in January. So the bump was to cover that $27.
Yes, Rick?
There's already a carryover of 105 in that for lapsed balances that you didn't spend last year.
The reason that account, there's two, I think, really. First off, we have to fund that account as if every employee took that benefit. We have quite a few employees who do not use that benefit in full. They're covered under a spouse for medical, so maybe they're only taking dental and vision or something. Commissioner said that, he's one of those, he's not using any of that benefit. But if you have someone that, say their spouse is where they are, and the spouse loses the job, and then therefore we have to be able to pick them up. So we fund that account as if every employee were to receive. It creates a lapse balance annually, because typically that does not happen.
It stays about the same.
Well, because, it really does, probably as to who's taken what and with full benefits. The other thing is, the accounts that fall under that insurance, and I've had this discussion with Jerry and with the auditors, are really kind of good accounts to look at appropriating for that lapse, where he was talking about in the future. It's money you know is not gonna be spent, because no one else can get to it for any other reason unless there was, you know, building blew up, we needed to go in and get the reserves. The board, of course, could do that. But it's also a good account to kind of overfund, so you create that lapse balance cash fund carryover from year to year, if that makes sense to you, Rick.
But do we need to add to it if we know that's coming?
Well, we do if you figure, you don't know. I mean, today I don't know how many employees taking the benefit, I don't have that number right off. But, you know, Chesapeake just laid off 750 people. If I've got employees that are affected with that for insurance that all of a sudden are knocking on the door today going, hey, I've gotta come over on this side. You know, at $559 a month, it adds up quick. So, we've always funded it as if we would use for every employee. We know not every employee is gonna take it, but you have to be prepared in case of those comes and goes. And that lapse balance is just to build up, and it contributes to that cash carryover that we have. It's not like it's going anywhere.
Well, that's a big chunk of 180 that carries over. Is that the same, am I?
No, what the 183 is, just to clarify, if you add up all the money we have to spend,
Plus what's been projected to be received.
which is the way a budget for us works, but all the money available for us to spend, and you
That's
add
not
up
related.
everything that the officers requested, if you covered everything everyone asked for without a question, we still had 183,000 that needs to be spent. The law does not allow us to just set aside.
Give back.
It is being, well, it is, but the law for county government says we have to allocate. We can't, we're not allowed a rainy day fund like the state where we can say a certain millage or a certain percent is automatically cut off the top. County government doesn't work that way. We have to allocate.
Gotcha.
So, in looking at the two things, I think what Monty was recommending is we just found out, I just got the numbers from insurance for 16, that we're gonna have that increase. He wanted that. And then his suggestion, if I understood him correctly, was the balance, which the 133, don't open it up to the officers. They're gonna get funded. The money's there to fund them. Let's put it over here in general government capital outlay, and if the building collapses and we need some money, it's there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well said, Troy.
Are we good?
Thanks, Troy.
All right, so let's move on then to,
We need.
or do we need to talk?
We need to take an action here, I think, because
Yeah.
I think you said we need to approve this, or did you make a motion to approve it?
Well, I don't think it's on
Well,
the
it's-
agenda.
Just one for any.
Not one is the financial statement, any changes,
So we've kind of been going through them one at a time, right?
general
We
draft.
got two that we're
Table.
waiting on, and if everybody's good with adding the 50,000, I think we can say, yeah, on the board, we're good with that.
I'm personally good with it.
I'm good with that also.
All right.
All right then, so moving on to civil defense, emergency management. David Ball.
Slight increase on the siren maintenance, and a little bit on M&O, and a little bit on personal services. And I just try to be a good steward and give money back when I can.
You're doing a good job there.
You don't
You
get-
have done a good job.
Especially with the nickels that we give you to do.
Thank you.
Good for me. County audit, I think that's.
We have no choice.
That's it.
I think they've made that abundantly.
They have. So our previous county auditor didn't seem to think so, budget maker didn't seem to think so. All right, so now we're on to the free fair.
We got a little money in the budget this year for repair on the roofs, that sort of stuff.
That's correct.
Are we good on that?
I'm good with it.
Yep. Ready to move on?
Thanks.
Highway budget last, of course, in pecking order. So, gentlemen?
Well,
views?
I don't wanna shoot myself in the foot here, but if we're gonna criticize the sheriff for getting the sales tax, do we really need this 100,000, because we're getting the sales tax for roads as well?
Absolutely, absolutely, you double funded, no?
I guess if you don't want anything to drive on, if your roads are in perfect shape in your county, then I guess you can.
I'm just throwing that out, I'm just,
But I
want to be
think-
honest and upfront with
That's
that.
right, we are getting county sales tax, and it's so far averaged, what, a little over 25,000 a month, my district, our districts.
Just
each.
remember, I gotta drive on them roads to get to you.
That's kind of my point here. I mean, we can't, I think if we're gonna do anything to our county road budget, from the condition of our roads, and from this last spring, the floods we've had, I think our roads are in worse shape this year than they were 2 years ago.
But what he's saying is he's gotta have the staff
I
funded
think,
to get.
I think what I'm saying is if we don't have the road infrastructure, that's kind of one of the services we're here to provide.
Well, I definitely want the money, but we are getting the sales tax for the roads now, which is gonna be a great.
And that's a good point.
For the people.
But why are we discussing cutting people when we have money to allocate?
Correct.
Just because you have money doesn't mean that everybody needs to get everything.
No one's asking for any additional money, they're just asking for the budget, and no one has been spending all of their money, they've been giving it back.
Then what's your concern?
I don't have a concern, you do.
Thank you.
My concern
That's
is
a-
why
that's
are
a
we
good area
hashing
to look
out
at
like
down-
we're
Down
cutting
the
and we're
road, you know,
not?
we talk about uncertainty
Just
about
wasting
future
everything.
conditions, and you're fortunate in this county to be able to do that, set some aside for
Good county roads.
each, yeah. For
Although,
Well,
each of the districts, all the
basically,
districts, and so that might be an area to consider, and like all of them, but you have some flexibility there. I think it's great that we.
That's basically a mile of asphalt, or what, in the neighborhood of about 10 miles of gravel, and
About 5 miles of
Five.
rebuilt dirt road.
there you go.
well, on the 100,000, we ask for 100,000 every year through the general government. If the general government falls short, we always up that up first, and then give it back to the
Yeah.
general government.
Yeah, because it's last
I
on the
think that's
list,
the approach, yeah. It's
on the statute.
right approach.
But this is 2 years in a row that we have gotten it.
That's correct.
It does make a big difference.
It's really good. Taxpayers always say, hey, I pay property tax. Now we can say that, yes, some of the budget goes to roads. So that's real good. Rick, did you have a question?
You answered it, I just wanted to
Okay.
kind of know how much 100,000 bought, just for
Mhm.
point of information, it's not very much.
It's about 11,000 for a mile road to gravel.
To grab.
Rick, I'm doing a 1.5 mile overlay, supposed to start this week, 175,000 to go 1.5 miles.
Yes. So we're good with 100,000?
If
Well,
right now it's good.
The only thing I had is we might cut 1 and 2 and add it all to District 3.
Of all the suggestions I've heard today, that's one of them.
And the reason I say that, if y'all look at the map, I got about 600 miles. Marvin has 275, Mike has 370. I think it takes more money to operate. 600 miles gives us 275. Y'all willing to give that up?
Let me think about it. No.
Our traffic volume is a heck of a lot larger. We need
I
more
don't
maintenance money.
think so.
Plus, I have what we lose some half of it.
I don't see this discussion on the agenda anywhere.
Thanks for keeping us on track, Troy.
I'll try.
I'm good on that.
All right, so we have our district attorney.
Yes, sir.
I'm not able to give you an answer right now.
Okay.
As you can guess, I was not the one initially going to be at this meeting.
Sure, I understand.
The two people who otherwise would be the appropriate ones to answer these questions, unfortunately, are in other meetings this morning. Is it possible to table this? To
Yes,
another meeting?
yes. We've got one on, what, the 5th?
Okay, and then our-
Put it on the agenda for the bill.
And that is our request.
All right.
Please.
So that went in, Sheriff, does that give you enough time, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I don't think we can actually put an approved submission to the excise board yet, so we finish the 2, but once those wrap up on the 5th, we can send it over.
So go ahead.
Just so I can clarify. As of right now, we've made one adjustment. This was to adjust as necessary, so we could table the entire item Or did you wanna list
No, we
that
tabled.
one item as a motion and then table? I'm just trying to make it clear. If we table the entire item, it would allow the DA's office to answer your questions, a decision to be made, the sheriff the same, and then you could take a motion to make the adjustments as outlined.
I'd like that.
Okay.
Okay.
But on that motion, Troy, 50,000 to go into insurance, then, what are we gonna do with the remainder, capital outlay?
General government capital outlay.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna take action on that. We'll
We
do it
do
as
have
a
it.
total
Yeah.
when we come back on Monday.
Right.
That would be Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
That works. So, item 2 on the agenda is
Table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that leaves us with item 3. Unless we want to do any citizens to be heard.
I'd like to thank the
Sure.
commissioners and all the department heads for coming in. I know this isn't, you haven't done this in previous years. It's been incredibly helpful for me as a citizen to be confident saying you guys are really checking out. And I know it was scary as Marvin starts hitting the DA with statutes and all the rest. I mean, my gosh.
You ought to know better.
When it's all said and done, this is transparent government that I am so thrilled to be a part of and to see you guys walk this out. And so I know it took your whole morning and everything, but I feel so much better knowing where this money's going and that you guys have done an excellent job and are moving forward. So thank you very much, all of you.
I second that.
I have
Come
one
back
question.
Monday.
and
Yes.
it doesn't have to do with the budget, but I'd like to know where we stand with that TIF with Love's.
Currently, things are moving in a very good direction.
So we still have it?
Yes. At this time.
But
We'll see.
could I clarify, because you said we have it, you're working.
We are working on that.
So it's not
And
signed,
the City of
but-
Guthrie, with their new city manager, as well as their new mayor, is definitely doing the right thing. So we're very pleased with the progress on that. It hasn't, we don't have an agreement yet.
We're kind of off topic.
So we don't have the TIF as of yet?
Correct.
Okay.
have
We
not.
haven't signed that agreement, but we're just trying to make sure that it's a public line before I sign it. If it's not going to be
Absolutely.
with the public, and the
It
city's
must
not
be.
going to charge them 100,000 to tap onto it, I'm okay with it. But if they're going to try to mess the public around and
Mhm.
Love's ain't going to let them have an easement, I won't sign it. So-
Right. Exactly. I think all 3 of us are in that
It's
position.
not official.
But we have had a transition in the administrative government for Guthrie,
I'm all right with that.
and previous administration made some errors. So that is being addressed, and that would make that.
Okay, and I know this isn't the proper forum for it, but who's a contact point for people that are concerned about the TIF? Who do they talk to?
For the trust, he's the
Well,
chairman.
I'm the chairman of the
He's
trust.
the chairman of the trust,
So that's your point now, you're pointing at yourself. Thanks, Marvin.
No,
and I'm the commissioner, it's in District 2, so I'm the commissioner that.
He sat on the
has
review committee.
The review committee,
Okay.
and I look at it every day,
Okay,
several times.
yeah, I just didn't know where it was.
I just want to
So-
Okay.
Because I was on my road. Our district barn's all in Midwest, and Midwest right now is tore up.
So you will advise my office if it comes
Absolutely.
about, because we've got it set up, ready to go, and I don't want.
It looks like their opening day will be sometime in December.
Actually, we need to advise the public through an open meeting if it's approved. That's what it's.
Certainly. It will be an open meeting.
We'll
Do
have
you
a
know
trust
when it
meeting.
might happen? When you'll know whether you're gonna approve it or not?
We do not, because we don't have all the engineering yet for the easement that's needing to be acquired. And that's what we're waiting on, is that till, and then our attorney will complete the agreement for our approval. If we approve that, and then Love's approves it, City of Guthrie, I think would also.
Is that blocked, or is it where we can go in and start doing our job out there, assessing?
I think you could get with the superintendent, and I can give you that contact if you wish to do that, and
Well, I'd
that would
like
be
to
his
start
option.
it. I think it would be helpful, because I know at the meeting, they claimed enormous amount that it would be valued. And from what I'm seeing, I don't see that, but we need to go in there and find out.
Sure.
Dan, after the meeting, I'd be glad to visit with y'all about my views on that.
Okay.
We'd rather not do it in a public meeting. if it's not on the
Well, we're
agenda.
hoping up all the department heads.
It's not on the agenda.
That's okay. Can I address one thing that Rick brought up earlier, and it just hit my head? On the M&O costs for general government, not quite, but almost half of that money is our property and liability insurance. That is not
That's
set
what it is.
aside, that is an M&O cost, and it is astronomical. So that's a huge
Yeah,
chunk.
that
It
to
just,
the juvenile, you're pretty much there already.
yeah, so it just popped in my head.
And the juvenile, some of that's maybe gonna be a collectible.
We're hoping, we haven't got anything yet, but we are making the efforts with the court system and the judges. We are forced to pay those bills monthly when they come in. We have no say-so, it's just the way it is. We are forwarding the bills to the court system, to be assessed by the judge to try to recoup anything. There's no reason a parent should get the paid vacation because the kid went to juvenile detention. That's my personal opinion. So we're making an effort.
And if they do that, that would add to the carryover. for-
It would come back in as revenue,
If we-
reimbursement
if we do
revenue.
that.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, item 3.
I move we adjourn.
I would second to table the 2 items until our next meeting.
So that's a second to adjourn. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.